Hey, it's Spork, and today I wanted to talk about an interesting topic I came across while reading The Republic of Plato, and I want to suggest that I'm not really going off of like the Republic of Plato direct interpretation of justice, but it sort of just seemed like an interesting topic. Also, this script was written like right after New Year's Eve, so I just want you to keep that in mind when you like question the coherent factor of this script, but I need a video out, so I'm going to go ahead and do it. Of course, I'm writing these scripts way ahead of time, so by the time that this video comes out on a weekly schedule, it's likely that hopefully I'm already done with the Republic of Plato and I've recovered. Also, I want to clarify that Socrates is definitely an interesting and thought-provoking guy, but you often already understand the point he's trying to make in the first three paragraphs, and then he just goes on and on restating the same thing in different ways for the next 20 pages, but that's besides the point. One of the more interesting topics that Socrates covers pretty early on is the definition of justice and injustice and by which one might live the best life. So, because of the fact I was reading the book and was in need of an interesting topic for a script, I figured that a video trying to articulate which lifestyle is more beneficial alongside an argument for whatever justice means would be fun, so here we go. Because I don't want to focus too much on what justice is specifically, I'm going to try and stick to a general definition for the term, but regardless, I'll still make a couple points about justice for the sake of specificity. Justice is almost always an act that's seen as taking place after another, the other act typically being what we would call injustice, but I wouldn't limit justice to just this, but moreover like a general idea or way of thinking. Injustice would be acts which typically seek to harm others or are considered harmful decisions by either general moral codes or by the law that we've instated. Of course, the obvious fragility of justice and injustice is that they are determined by a moral code or laws instituted by some governing body, meaning that the things either of the terms encompass are directly affected by location and time period culturally. After all, I think it's pretty obvious that laws are not often created in the best interest of the people that are affected by them, alongside the fact that injustice 100 years ago in the United States would be not letting a depressed poet marry their teenage cousin. Either way, I'm starting to get off track, so for the sake of this video, we'll call injustice an act which seeks to harm another individual, particularly for one's own gain, and justice an act which either punishes the doer of said harmful action or offers some sort of compensation for the victim. I feel like the potential benefits that come alongside a life of injustice can be pretty easily seen, so I'll cover that first. First of all, it's pretty obvious how through harming others we can create a more advantageous situation for ourselves. Stealing is probably one of the first things that will come to mind, considering the action will directly lead to one having procured something for themselves for nothing but the action of actually stealing the item. Of course, something like sabotage can also be considered, something like deliberately spreading false rumors about a competitive coworker so that you get the promotion instead of them. Gratification of emotional urges can likely be considered a benefit of injustice as well, such as beating up or murdering other individuals to blow off a little steam. I mean, as you might have imagined, living a life of injustice as we've labeled it is pretty nice if you have no qualms about putting others down. Of course, there are downsides to doing injustice, but I feel like these are things I'll save for just a little bit, considering any downside to injustice is basically just justice. So now that we got injustice down very simply, we can talk about the potential benefits that come from a life of justice, its opposite. Living a life according to justice does have its own benefits as well. First of all, by encouraging a society which embraces justice, people generally do not have to fear facing the injustice of others at the price that they must also not commit injustice. This is obviously a pretty big downside to those that might prefer a life of injustice, as without justice to punish other people or punish you, other people are likely to be unjust and take advantage of you as well without it. For the moral enthusiast, justice is pretty appealing in most cases in the fact that it encourages people to work together and punishes those that seek to harm others simultaneously. You could also make the very fair point that a society which encourages healthy justice will likely tend more towards development and technological process, given the fact that a safe haven has to be made for this sort of development to be possible in the first place. Then again, this sort of development has also led to the creation of the atomic bomb, but it's also a fair point to say that no society is likely wholly just, and even more so that society often tries to weaponize justice for its own purposes, effectively making it unjust. So now that I've given a pretty limited list of the pros and cons that might come alongside justice and injustice, we can sort of take the time to deliberate on which of the two is, as a whole, better. Injustice is, as I said before, attractive in the fact that one is no longer limited by the boundary that one is expected to be respectful to and help others, instead, taking from them valuables or experiences which likely took less effort to steal than one would have put into creating said thing themselves. Obviously, in a world where everyone is unjust, you are bound to have unjust things done to you, but supposing you live in an environment of justice, so long as you evade the hand of justice, injustice is pretty nice, just for you. Justice is no weak competitor, though. After all, the existence of people generally favoring justice is the only reason injustice is attractive in the first place. Stealing or harming people that don't want to do injustice to you as well is a lot easier than trying to take advantage of people that would just as easily kill you as you might them. I mean, in this case, it's basically the difference between hunting like a baby deer and a bear. While this is dependent on what you value, justice is also, in a way, promoted an environment where people can improve technology and quality of life for many people to work together without the fear of others taking advantage of them all the time. The side of justice is also particularly interesting as it can make generally unjust actions into just ones as long as the target of said actions is deemed unjust themselves. In this way, justice has a way of defending itself against the unjust, and the unjust must simply accept that unjust actions will likely reciprocate their own if they're caught. I rarely make a distinct conclusion when wrapping up a video like this, but when it comes to justice as I have defined it, I would have to say that I'm generally a proponent of it. Of course, this doesn't take away from the fact that the name of justice is often used to masquerade injustice. Idolizing the name of justice can be dangerous when we don't take the time to look beyond the things that we put its label on. Considering the ideal justice of punishing unjust actions and fostering a safe community of people, I will certainly say I'm a proponent of it instead of the likely less long-term good that would come for myself out of a life of injustice. Anyways, that's about all I have to say for now. Thanks for watching, unless I'll decide to rip on the guitar for this one.